the biggest myth is that by specializing in an industry or a market that you're going to actually grow slower. And the reality is, study after study, specialized agencies grow twice as fast as generalists.
How do you help the founders with that transition? Because I remember that as a founder, that was scary to me.
Kind of the knee-jerk reaction to specializing is, well, let's just find an industry where a lot of people are spending money and we'll just focus on that. And what they find is in 6 months later, they go, yeah, I tried that, didn't work, I'm gonna do something else. So the reality is that to have a long-term impact on your business and not kind of jump from one to the next, you have to go through kind of a rigorous process.
How does AI fit into this in 2025, 2026 as we're recording this?
Such a good question.
Hi, and welcome to the AI Transformation Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Mast, and I'm really excited today to have with me Corey Quinn. Corey and I met briefly when we were down recently at a mastermind event in Cancun. We were both speaking, and we had an opportunity to chat very briefly, and decided we'd take this opportunity in front of you guys to really connect and get to know each other, chat a little bit more, and dive in from there. As you know, I love these to be conversational, and I thought it would be just an incredible opportunity to learn some about what Corey's done and get his perspective on things. So, Corey, with that in mind, if you would, tell us a little bit about yourself for anybody that may not be familiar with you, Corey. Can you give us the 30-second overview?
Sure, absolutely. So, Jonathan, by the way, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm excited to reconnect with you and to continue to build our relationship and share hopefully some cool things for the audience. As you know, as a previous agency owner, agency founders typically struggle with escaping founder-led sales. Well, what I do is I help them to build a system that frees them from the sales dependence that they typically have.
I love how you're just direct and to the point. And when I was doing some prep work for the podcast, I saw that. And, I would say certainly 95% of the agencies that I know are stuck in that mode where if the founder gets out of sales, they're in trouble. I know when we had our agency, I was absolutely there. When I would start selling, we would do fine. We would have sales. I mean, we had our ups and downs, but things were good. But if I stepped out of sales and left it to others, it was like, you can almost feel the rock dropping. Exactly. So I'm, even though I've sold the agency and have now moved on to other things, I'm really curious where some of that comes from. So talk to me a little bit about that problem. Is my estimation that 95% of the agencies struggle with that accurate, or where does that fit in? Talk to us a little bit about how you help them fix that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, so it's about 95%. I think it comes from the fact that agencies are started by typically technical founders, right? But, and we could talk more about that, but, so a little bit of context about me, hopefully helpful for the audience, which is that I've been in the digital agency space for 20 years. And really the first 10 years of that was working at an agency for a founder in a sales role, where the founder was sort of that source of new business, new leads. I remember one founder at this agency called the Search Agency, where I worked for about 6 or 7 years in a sales role, and the founder was an HBS, Harvard Business School MBA graduate, and as a result of that, had an amazing network, had a golden network where they could just reach into their cell phone or into their the alumni network at Harvard and be able to have direct line to the CMO of Hyundai and the CEO of Lululemon and all these amazing names. And of course, what did we do in the sales department? Well, we just kind of depended on him to reach into his network, which of course he did. He wanted to grow the agency. And over time, we tried different things. We tried PPC, we tried content marketing and lead magnets and all of these things to help us to supplement what the founder brought in. But ultimately, we always reverted back to what worked best, which is no surprise, the founder just reaching out to their network and driving the sales motion. And so interestingly, that was a role for about 6 years, 7 years. And then I went to another agency, and lo and behold, same thing. This founder was the ex-CEO of MySpace. And if you remember MySpace is like Facebook today, but it was about 10, 15 years ago. And he had an amazing Rolodex. And so we just depended on him. And of course, we tried other things, but always went back to that. And so things changed when I was recruited to go work at a digital agency called Scorpion. And Scorpion, at the time in 2015, when I joined, it was primarily focused on attorneys, and it was about a $20 million agency. And what I found was that it was a sales team that was very productive, somewhat dependent on the founder. What we were able to do is really build out a full system that allowed the sales team to ultimately scale without the founder. Just a little bit of metrics. We grew from 20 million when I arrived in 2015 to over 200 million by the time I left. So a 10x in revenue. We grew the sales team from 6 people to over 100. And we grew the number of clients from 1,000 to 14,000. So it was really during that time that I learned how, what works when it comes to building a repeatable sales system that does not rely on the founder.
Absolutely amazing. And I'm just to hear that progress and to think about that growth. Yeah. I'm curious from your perspective, Corey, I talk about AI and all that. How does, or does it not, how does AI fit into this in 2025, 2026, as we're recording this end of 2025? Some may be listening to it early 2026. How does AI fit into sales nowadays from your perspective?
Such a good question. So what I find is, and this is obviously a moving target. So, by the time this airs, who knows where we'll be, but as a career salesperson and now coaching agencies and businesses to do sales, what I have found is that the more transactional the sale, meaning the low ticket, kind of bread and butter commoditized services, the more AI can really drive that sale. Whereas when it comes to more of a transformational sale, not transactional, but transformational, where it's more of a consultative selling, I find that when it is ultimately high ticket, people want to buy from other humans. So sure, you can leverage AI to have a more robust proposal or to have a more personalized approach to managing that sales relationship. But ultimately, I find AI today is much more of an enhancement of the sales process versus a substitute at that level.
I'm so happy to hear you say that. I agree with you 110%. In fact, it's one of I think the biggest challenges that we run into in the coaching side is often we'll be talking to a client and they're like, can I get rid of my sales team? And the answer is 99% of the time, no. This can help your sales team. This can amplify their experience and their skill. You can improve your close ratios. You can maybe shorten your selling cycles. But no, you can't get rid of them because, just like you said, I believe this wholeheartedly. In fact, I even talked about it last week when I was in Dallas at a conference. People buy from people. We had a big discussion about AI video, and I'm not opposed to AI video, but I said the danger in AI video is the fact that people buy from people. And video, like it or not, especially when we're watching it on our phones, which many of us do, is a very personal connection when we're looking at basically a headshot of somebody talking to us. And I said, when you replace that with AI, first of all, you have to be totally transparent that you're doing it, or you're absolutely going to kill trust and credibility. And I agree with you. When anything requiring consultative sales, it's a tool, but it's certainly not a replacement. I'm curious, as you've worked with agencies, do you find agencies are understanding that, or are they sometimes having to be pulled back from that? No, we can't just get rid of our account managers and our sales team with AI.
What I have found is the AI is typically applied in the list building process as a common example. People will leverage AI to go out and just source leads. And of course, my experience, whether it's working through my clients or directly, is that unfortunately, we're not yet at a place where AI is going to be powerful enough to substitute having someone, whether it's yourself as the founder or someone on your team, actually intentionally going through the list of leads and in some respects manually checking everything. One of the tactics that I teach, Jonathan, is a process that I now call gift-based outbound. And it's something I learned back at Scorpion, but effectively gift-based outbound is sending amazing gifts to high-value prospects. And people are trained today to go out and build a list from Apollo or Coldlytics, or they use Clay, all these different platforms. That's really great. But when you want to really stand out, and certainly by sending a gift, you can stand out. But the way you build that list is you don't just push a button and get a list and send a bunch of gifts. You actually have to be very intentional about who the business owner is, the nature of their business. Are they a good fit for you? If you're going to send a $100 or $200 gift, are they actually going to be someone who can buy from you? So a lot more of the discussions I'm having is, how do we slow down, not go for as much volume, but go for more value, more quality? Sure, again, AI can AI can supplement this, but certainly it's not a click button substitute that will sort of make things happen as good as or better than a human would today.
No, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
As you work with agencies, let's go back to kind of the core and move back from AI for a moment. How do you help them move from that founder-centric sales model into a non-centric sales or a non-founder-centric model?
Yeah. So the foundation of everything I teach is something that I call deep specialization. And what I find is that a lot of these 95% of these agencies are stuck in what I call the generalist trap. And the generalist trap is one where you have a founder-led business, you get into business and you start saying yes to anything that comes in, because of course you want to be in business as a founder. Maybe early stage of a founder, I'm not sure if this was true for you, Jonathan, but some people start their agency on Upwork or on Fiverr, moonlighting while they have a day job, and eventually, right, they begin to break out. They begin to build an actual business, quit their day job, and start to hire employees or white label, whatever that is. And they're trained. The reason why they get into business is by saying yes to people who want to hire them. Well, eventually, you end up with when you follow that line of business, eventually you fill a business that's full of context switching. One day you're building an SEO, you're doing SEO for a dentist. The next day you're building a website for a manufacturing company. The next day you're doing a TikTok strategy for, an attorney, right? And so every day is different lift, and you have to learn a different industry, and your team goes crazy every time you close a new deal because you've just committed them to having to learn yet another industry. And of course, when you have an agency that is built that way, which is, again, very common, you end up creating a business that's full of bottlenecks. And typically that founder is that number one bottleneck. When you have a bottlenecked business, you end up creating a commoditized service. It's pretty good, but your clients suspect that they can get the same thing better somewhere else. And of course, when you have a commoditized service, or at least perceived by your clients, they'll churn. And when they churn, you have to go chase revenue, which causes you to have to say yes. And it becomes this negative flywheel. And so the number one way to get out of founder-led sales is by escaping this generalist trap, by committing to serving a vertical market. That's really the first thing is, are you too much of a generalist, or are you focused on a vertical market? Of course, the benefits of that, we all know, is you get great expertise by repetition. If you're serving dentists all day, every day, you get really good at serving dentists. It's like the old Bruce Lee quote, right? That it's not, I fear not the man that has practiced one kick 1,000 kicks one times. I fear the man that has practiced one kick 1,000 times. And so it's through that repetition is expertise. You build processes and systems that actually get used, and eventually you begin to build a brand and a reputation. You can charge premium prices. So that's number one. Number one is the foundation of, let's call it a pyramid, is the positioning. It's the specialization. Then, of course, you need to be really clear about the problems you solve, how you solve them, what makes you different to drive great leads. But then that's, again, the foundation. The next biggest piece is that you have a sales process that is driven by the founder, which is, again, a technical founder that has a very technical approach to the sale. They could be a whiz at talking to a prospect about their website and jump into Hrefs and do all this analysis on the fly to this prospect. Of course, the prospects are blown away by how great it is. It's wonderful. However, when you try to bring in, or when that founder who's very technical tries to bring in a salesperson who doesn't have that background, doesn't have that level of expertise or experience in the market, they become lost. And so as a result, that salesperson can only do a very small part of the sales process. That founder cannot sort of break free completely. And so that, again, that's another very typical situation. So the path, generally speaking, is once you have a vertical specialization and you know who you're serving, first off, the sale becomes repetitive because you're solving the same problems for the same people. But then secondarily, you need to have something I call a signature system, which is your system, your proprietary system for solving their problems. It's a named system. It's not just a generic, we do PPC and SEO. It is the personal injury attorney case engine or something along those lines.
Gotcha.
So you have to be prescriptive about what it is, your system that's repetitive. And then as a result of that, you begin to lay the foundation for having a salesperson come in and pitch the system, not the founder.
Gotcha. Well, that resonates with me at so many levels, as you know, and I shared, I had an agency for many years, and boy, we went through that same exact process. I remember, getting started, and if you were willing to give me money for something I could do, we were more than happy to do it.
Take it.
And, that worked for the first few months while we were desperately trying to make money to pay the mortgage. But then, like you said, we start bringing on a team, we start expanding, we started growing. I never did do Upwork, but I know many that have. And as you start doing that, yes, you're right. Then it's different every single day. For somebody like me with ADHD, there's a bit of enjoyment and joy in that because it brings excitement. But one of the things we learned when we had our agency in 2021, we made the decision to go to a niche. So let's pick a niche, let's focus on it and move really from project-based revenue into monthly recurring based revenue. And it was scary because we were doing a little over 7 figures. We'd done it on projects, but boy, it was a lot of work. When we moved over, what amazed me was how quickly we were able to rebuild back to 7 figures in less than a year on that niche basis. But the part that really surprised me, and you mentioned it, was my team. I didn't think my team would really care one way or the other. And we found our team confidence literally just soared when we went to be niche-based focused because like you said, we may be doing websites and we still might have been doing social media and ads, but we were doing it all for one type of customer. And so when we'd go out and talk to that customer, it didn't feel like, oh my goodness, yesterday was a plumber, tomorrow was a chiropractor. It was one type of client.
Who am I talking to today? Like, what kind of business is it?
Yeah, exactly. And it made that's the part that really surprised me. And you are right. That is when things started to change on a sales basis, that Jonathan didn't need to be the one involved all the time because my team understood the pain points. They understood the issues. I love what you said. They understood what kept our agency separate. Why work with us? What was our special sauce? And they were able to share that much more confidently because it wasn't trying to figure out, well, hang on, does this apply? Because we did this for a lawn care company, but does that mean when we work for a dentist, it's the same way? And so I love how you lay all that out and put that through. I'm curious, when you're working with agencies, what type of pushback do you get from the founders on this? Or generally when you're working with them, are they at a point where the founders are like, please rescue me? Where does that happen?
If they haven't convince themselves that they need to niche down and specialize, then they're not ready to hire me. Reality is that it goes against human bias and human instinct to take a business and say, yeah, we're not going to say yes to 80% of the market or 90% of the market because by doing that, like that's how I got that's how most founders become successful in the first place. You said it yourself. You had gotten to 7 figures. That's an amazing accomplishment. But unfortunately, the business typically, maybe not in your case, but typically the business is full of chaos. And so
it was tons of chaos. Absolutely.
But it's known chaos versus going and saying, hey, no, we're going to stop doing this. We're going to go down this new road. And by the way, we're going to start saying no to people. So the biggest myth is that by specializing in an industry or a market that you're going to actually grow slower. And the reality is, study after study, Promethean, there's a bunch of people out there who've put out this great research that validates the fact that data, like it's black and white, that specialized agencies grow twice as fast as generalists for all the reasons we talked about. It's the kind of the J curve. I just was meeting with one of my clients. I just interviewed him actually. where they decided to focus on a specific industry. In this case, it was digital health. They were a generalist.
Perfect.
They worked with everyone under the sun, but everything was so chaotic in the agency. They really were dedicated to growing a great business. We went through a process. We chose digital health. And what they found is they switched over their website. They switched over everything. First couple of months, it was a little bit scary because all of a sudden,
Yes, it was. I remember that.
This, right. And however, over time, they built up this momentum. And he said that this change was last year, 2024, 2025. Again, the year was a little slow, kind of a J curve went down. The business went down a little bit. By October 13th, today, where we're recording, I talked to him last week. They're having their best year ever because they had built up that momentum. It just takes a little bit of time.
It does. How do you help the founders with that transition? Because I remember that was, as a founder, that was scary to me. I'm like, crap, what are we going to do? Because you're right. For the first couple of months, it's like we were used to being scrappy and figuring it out. And then you're committed. But like you said, it really felt, it was logical. There was no problem with the logic, but emotionally, it was really hard to grasp. How do you help agencies transition that period?
I think so. By taking them through a structured process to identify a great vertical market that is going to fit with them. So the kind of the knee-jerk reaction to specializing is, well, let's just find an industry where a lot of people are spending money and we'll just focus on that. And that could be attorneys, that could be home services. And what they find is in 6 months later, they go, yeah, I tried that, didn't work. I'm going to do something else. So the reality is that to have a long-term impact on your business and not kind of jump from one to the next, one industry to the next, you have to go through kind of a rigorous process. And part of that is, yes, you go and find the data story that substantiates or backs up this thesis of specialization. But it's also kind of a psychological journey where the founder will go through, where they realize as a result of applying rigor and really going deep into this process that, hey, we're making actually a very solid choice here. I've talked to my team, I've talked to my people, the data supports it. And so as a result of this is the data, this is the evidence that I need to make a high quality decision. At that point, usually they're willing to see it through because they can see it and it doesn't feel like just a reactive kind of decision.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. How about on the sales teams? That was our other thing that we struggled with, was the sales team embracing this. I'm just curious, and probably, feel free to drive us down another road here, but I'm really curious, how do the sales teams take that and how do you transition it with them? Because in our case, we found they'd gotten pretty used to founder-led sales, which meant their job when they followed my lead was pretty easy. And when they didn't, it got harder. How do you find, and how do you help them transition through that?
So it's a good question. I'm curious, Jonathan, which niche did you guys focus on when you went through this?
We ended up focusing on damage restoration services.
Oh, it's a great vertical, by the way.
It was a hard one, but it worked out very well.
Yeah. It's great in that their average cost per job is pretty good. There's a lot of search demand for it, and it's usually very motivated buyers, and so there's a lot of good things about that industry. And so usually, in a transition from a generalist to a specialist, I recommend my clients really be intentional about telling the why behind doing this. I'll go back to my client, Chris at MatchNode, who went into digital health. They had kind of an all hands meeting with the company and said, hey, we've been doing things the way that we have been to date. We're getting these results. We no longer want to have these results. We want to have better results. And you're all part of this strategy and this journey. And so as a result of working with Corey or going through a process, we've decided on this specific vertical for all these reasons. This is why it aligns with our values and our culture. And this is why we think it's going to really help us all to really make a big impact. So there's a bit of that culture related storytelling and building a case for that. And then typically salespeople are very money motivated. Right. A great salesperson really wants to make a lot of money. Right. That's one of the reasons
especially
why
a good
they're
one.
in sales.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so part of the role of a founder is really has to tell that story of what's in it for them, with them, as they say, right? So
Yes, love that.
we have to be able to talk about the size of the market, the total opportunity, how many businesses out there, and what that means to each of the salespeople individually. So that relates back to their territory, if they have territories, what their quota is, how many deals, and helping them to see that. And then I think the third thing I'll mention on this is that salespeople operate based on momentum and confidence, right? You've heard it all the time when you have a sales floor where all the guys and gals are on the sales floor and one person closes a deal. Guess what happens next? People the activity builds up on the sales floor because they heard that, Joe just closed a deal. I want to close a deal, right? So it builds up all this momentum. And what happens when you take a specialization approach, you're actually able to build a better case, better credibility, better client results for people. And so the sales process actually becomes much more powerful because you're able to tell a better story versus we try hard.
I love that. I'd not thought about that from just an inertia on the sales floor, but you're absolutely right. I mean, if we've all hit those dry spells and those times where we're going, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? Yeah. And then it's like clockwork. Somebody closes something, and then all of a sudden, we used to talk about the dam breaking because it was like everything was piling up behind.
Yeah.
And then boom, it would happen. And every sales rep would close 1 or 2 deals within a week or so. It was just amazing how that worked. I have no idea why. I'd be curious if you have any insights into psychology, but it's very interesting when you talk about that.
Yeah, it's momentum psychology. There's a lot of psychology in sales, and most of the psychology that prevents us from being successful is limiting beliefs. And when you see other people or you hear other people, it's infectious, and you kind of have more courage in that moment to go out and do the things like make the extra phone call or send the extra email. And so you combine that momentum with the confidence of a great repetitive sales system that really sets that salesperson up for success. That just builds the momentum and drive on that sales floor.
No, it reminds me a lot of the 4-minute mile. I remember many years ago watching a movie about that, and people had literally thought it was physically impossible to run a 4-minute mile or a sub 4-minute mile. And then, of course, once it was broke, many, many people broke it within, if I remember right, weeks or months. It was just like boom, 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 boom. All of a sudden, all these people started doing it. So I think that's very true in sales. And as we pull that together, that's so interesting. I love that. Talk to us a little bit more about how you work with that. So, I mean, part of it you mentioned is picking a niche, moving from generalist into the niche side, but I'm sure there's some specific sales strategies in that you're employing as well without giving away the secret sauce.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about what that looks like for an agency that may be listening and going, man, how do we do this? And would this work for us?
Yeah. One of the most powerful tactics or strategies, if you will, that has really helped us to scale our growth at Scorpion was when we went from relying on exclusively inbound traffic, like leads coming in from content and other things, to when we figured out outbound. The magic in that is that when you are relying exclusively on inbound, you're relying on people finding you, consuming your content, or filling out your form and contacting you and showing up. What we know is that only 3% of your addressable market is coming inbound at any point. And so what happens is the majority of the market is not coming inbound. And in fact, they're in what I call the zone of indifference. Statistically, about 80% of the market is in the zone of indifference, which is kind of like my wife who has the iPhone 17, who the battery is maxed out, and there's no more memory, and the thing is chipped, and it's just and it's kind of bad, but it's not bad enough for her to go shop for a new iPhone. Right? And so most of the people who are looking, who are your ideal client, are in the market. They're in that zone of indifference where their current agency is not, it's bad, but it's not bad enough for them to go through the painful process of finding a new solution. So that's why outbound can be really powerful. The challenge, of course, is that many people rely on spam your TAM approach, which is just sending cold
Yep.
email, or doing cold calling. Both of those are very difficult to do really well. Requires a specific skill set, requires a lot of volume, persistence, a lot of rejection. People can make that work. But what we figured out was by sending gifts to cold prospects ahead of a cold call, it would transform a whole the whole motion. And I'll give you a quick story to kind of encapsulate this gift-based outbound thing. This is probably my favorite stories to tell. One of the guys on the sales team, his name is Justin. He was targeting franchise businesses. These are large multi-location companies, and he was targeting the CEO of this amazing franchise that if we can close this client, it would make his year. It would be amazing for the company. It would be wonderful for everyone. Unfortunately, the salesperson, his name is Justin, he was persistently trying to reach out to the CEO, and she would not return his phone calls, not return his emails. He even had mutual friends introduce him. That didn't get anywhere. And so it was a big struggle, but he didn't give up. And he started researching this CEO, and he found that she was interviewed in a magazine. And in the magazine interview, she was asked, what is your all-time favorite quote? And she said, my all-time favorite quote, something my dad told me. It's something that's been with me my whole life. And if I've used it, it's been helpful in my career. It's been helpful at home with my kids. And it is, the quote is, be authentic and tell great stories. Okay, so Justin read this article, saw that quote, went straight to Etsy, found an amazing artist, and had that quote embroidered onto a beautiful pillow. Of course, put that pillow into a FedEx box, sent it to the CEO, who opened it. That turned into a phone call, which turned into a relationship, which turned into a $1.6 million deal for Scorpion.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I love that.
Pretty
Great
cool.
quote too, by the way. I love that. That's really
right?
cool.
It's good. I like it too.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Yeah. Well, talk to me as you pull your crystal ball out, Corey, and you look, and I know there's a lot of agency owners and business owners out there going, okay, we've got to figure out ways to bring more technology in and to help with more technology.
Yeah.
One of my beliefs I'll share with you is I think one of the areas that AI is going to help in the future is it's going to take those great salespeople, and at least from the hunter side of the sales part, I've never met a great hunter that was good at paperwork. And I think AI is going to help with the paperwork.
1,000%. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
One, what are your thoughts on that? Because I really, when I was a sales rep, I was a terrible sales rep from a compliance perspective. I'll never forget the last 3 sales jobs I had before I was self-employed. The offer to the owner was simple. I promise to be your number 1 sales rep. You can pay me almost entirely on commission, and I fill out no paperwork, and I don't fill out your CRM. You let me do my stuff, and you deal with everything else. Right. And by the way, expense reports are going to basically be my credit card statement. I use 1 credit card, just pay me. Now that worked, but it also caused a lot of problems internally.
Sure.
And I'm curious from your perspective.
Yes.
I met other people that were, and I was a hunter. I was not a farmer. I was a hunter.
Yeah.
I met other people like that were similar. I'm curious what your perspective is where does AI fit into that to help those salespeople that are very good at what they do, but drive everybody within the business crazy because they don't do any of the things that everybody else thinks they should do.
Right. Things that are actually good for the company. So yes, 1,000% agree with you, Jonathan, that salespeople are not typically known for being great at being thorough with the CRM. I wish they would be from where I sit.
As an owner, I see it absolutely 100%. Exactly. And as a sales rep, it was middle finger. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it.
Do you want me to hit quota, or do you want me to fill out these fields, right? What do you want?
I had that discussion more than once, yes.
And so you're absolutely right. It's so powerful. I love this because salesperson to salesperson, you're absolutely right. So what AI does really great is it can obviously record the transcript of the conversation, parse the pieces of data out of a conversation from the transcript, and put it directly into the proper fields in the CRM. Mm-hmm. Love that. That's number 1. Number 2, and you may or may not have been doing this. I imagine on some level you have, but another really great use of AI is to teach it the sales methodology, the sales approach, whatever that is, spin selling, whatnot, and do actual role plays with the AI as the salesperson and the buyer, where you go into a role play situation. it's great for junior salespeople to go through this and actually have a mock sales call and then have the AI. Additionally, like you do the mock sales call with the AI, and then it will give you coaching based on the framework that they're being measured against. It's very, very powerful. It's much more scalable than having a sales manager having to do that with a huge room of salespeople.
I love that. We've done actually quite a bit of that just from well, we don't do sales training as we're teaching people how to do it. We found those role-playing tools with AI tend to be very, very effective because the other thing that we found works well there, especially for that beginner to mid-tier sales rep that doesn't have as much experience, is they have the ability to go in and say, okay, here's the client that I'm pitching to. I need to know what type of objections they're likely to come back at me with so that I can then go through that. And what's worked really well in that, and this surprised me, I admit, we did better on that when we let the sales rep play the prospect and we let AI play the salesperson.
Ooh, that's good. I hadn't thought about that.
Because those salespeople admittedly were not confident in their ability to handle the rebuttals, but they were very confident that they knew what was going to be coming at them. Right. And it worked out really well because instead of the AI coming back and they're going, yeah, I'm still not sure what to do, they were able to play the prospect and even sometimes play a mean prospect who's being very difficult.
Yeah, right.
And the AI would then, again, by following the one we did happen to be based on Sandler, I think, but a consultative sales approach, working through that, they were able to see, and they were able to even see, wow, the AI was able to get them to calm down, to be focused, to see the value, and ultimately to walk into that sale instead of feeling like they were, at some used car lot being sold by Leisure Suit Larry's. So I love that.
It's great. Again, it's really cool to talk to someone who can appreciate sales, and with your background with AI and everything, I can certainly see how that builds confidence for a salesperson because technically they could be prepared to handle pretty much any variation of what the prospect says versus coming in with a kind of a narrow ability to navigate a conversation based on a script on a piece of paper. Yeah. I think that's really powerful.
Oh, very cool. I love that. Well, Corey, if people are listening in and they're thinking, man, I need to talk to Corey, I need to understand, and candidly, they want to talk to you and have you help them, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I want to give a gift to your audience. I am the author of a book. I wrote this after I left Scorpion. It's a book called Anyone,
I've read it.
Not
It's
Everyone.
fantastic.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you. So this book is my 5-step process for building the foundation around escaping founder-led sales. Anyone listening, you're welcome to download the entire audiobook for free. When you do, you're going to get the digital workbook, which will include scripts and templates and videos and all this great stuff. Just go to anyonenoteveryone.com. That's anyonenoteveryone.com, and you can download it from there.
Wow, Corey, thank you so much. That's amazing. I absolutely love that. What a great offer. And from there, can they figure out how to get in touch with you and all that if necessary?
So you'll get access to my email list. You can email me directly from that.
Awesome. I love it. Well, Corey, I want to thank you for taking the time today. I know we had to figure out between speaking schedules and travel how to get together. Very grateful for your time in doing that. And looking forward to chatting with you again in November as we're scheduled to do. So thank you so much. For all of you, for everyone who's been listening or watching along, I want to thank you. We do this for you guys. So we really appreciate that. We love your feedback. We would appreciate you giving us a 5-star rating if we deserve it. If not, I'd love to hear from you and find out why we don't and go from there. We love it. We love it. Everybody, thank you so much. We'll see you on the other side. Make it a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.